Yeah, check it out. Good afternoon and welcome to our first meeting in May, which will actually be our last meeting in May because our second meeting falls on Memorial Day. And so we've got a packed agenda and we have some folks here in our audience, and I'm sure we have folks watching us on our electricity television. Our invocation tonight will be given by Councilman Arnett Harbin with respect to the flags led by the Mayor Pro Tem John Roberts. Please rise.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for allowing us to live in a free country. I pray for our military personnel in harm's way, protecting our freedom. I pray for our police and firefighters as they protect our citizens. I pray for each of the leaders and employees of our city team that provide services for our citizens. I pray for our management team, they would lead our city staff, and I pray for this council that as we make policy decisions, that we make decisions pleasing in your eye and allow our city team to implement these policies. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The minutes of our April 23rd meeting have been distributed. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Not hearing any, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
First by Mr. Buck Roberts, and second by Cal Newton. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The minutes of April 23rd pass unanimously. We have one item of old business, and it is in conjunction with our first item of new business. So what I'd like to do is enter both of these, since they're from the same applicant, into our meeting minutes at one time. And at that point, I will let our city manager give recaps of both items.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The two items that we have are request to rezone 1226 Springdale Road from R15 single-family residential to RM18 multifamily residential. The second item, which is B1 in new business, is the request to rezone 503 College Avenue from R15 single-family residential to RM18 multifamily residential. And the RM18 category is the category that is primarily the designation for the university. It is our understanding that certainly over the past week or so, these, as we've gotten calls and fielded requests for information about these properties, there has been conversation with the staff about potential city regulations that might serve to enhance the planning and development in this area. As we know over time, certainly the mixture of university-related uses and the adjoining residential, single-family residential neighborhood, there are sometimes challenges that go along with both of those uses being in conjunction with one another. The conversations that we've had recently have been surrounding what we know in the planning field as zoning overlay districts. And zoning overlay districts have been a source of conversation over the past week or so with the university and at least one or two people from the neighborhood. We see that as an opportunity that might serve to enhance how these different uses could perhaps deal with some of the challenges that go along with different types of uses like housing, traffic, various things of that nature. So to that end, we've been in conversation with Anderson University, and I think you all have received a letter this evening from Anderson University about their intended action for tonight. And Mayor, we have Anderson University representatives in the audience, and I think I'm correct that Omar Rashad, it may be appropriate for him to address the council at this point.
Thank you, Ms. McConnell. Omar, could you come to the podium, please, sir?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor Roberts and Mr. Chairman. Thank you, City Council, for this opportunity to present. Anderson University seeks to operate in a manner that is respectful and that's mutually beneficial of our neighbors, and so our goal is to identify a solution that will be mutually beneficial both to the university and to our neighbors, and to preserve the beauty and the distinction of their residential neighborhood. During our meetings before the Board of Architectural Review, it allowed the university to hear some of the very legitimate concerns that the neighbors expressed about some of the misuses and some of the code violations that have been occurring in the neighborhood and in their community. And so since that time, the university's added some very stiff penalties and fines that go into effect this fall for students that are identified as living more than 4 to a home, unrelated, and that are operating outside of the city ordinances. We also had asked the city for a better place to dump the yard clippings for all of the neighborhood. They're dumped in one location there, right in front of the 1226 Springdale property. So we had asked the city for their assistance and leadership in helping identify a better location to do that. They did that. We've since moved that to where it's out of sight, and we've greened up that space there to make it more attractive. So I reference those just to point that the university is very interested and very concerned about the neighbors' reservations that they have about this. We understand that the concerns are legitimate, and we want to partner with them. We want to identify solutions that are going to serve them well. So following our last meeting, I had inquired, as we heard the residents' concerns, I inquired if there was a way, if there was a solution that the zoning could be changed for the benefit of the university, but there could be some kind of addendum or documentation that would place restrictions so that the neighbors' concerns could be addressed. And unfortunately, we learned that can't be done. That it's either zoned commercial or residential. There is no secondary option. But in recent conversations with one of the Springdale residents, he identified the concept of overlay zoning, which was through consultation with a real estate attorney, and so that seemed to be a solution, as Ms. McConnell mentioned, that could provide an option that protects the residents and preserves the neighborhood. But you place on top of those more stringent restrictions that would be identified through the research that the city would do and through public hearings and input both from the residents and from the university. And so that's essentially what our request is today, is a continuance of our application to permit time for the city staff to conduct the necessary research for overlay zoning law and make sure that, and we identify whatever that appropriate time frame would be in order for that to be accomplished, identify those mutually beneficial solutions, and then move forward from there. So at the appropriate time, once those were identified by the city staff, then those would come back to the council for another hearing. So you'll see our request is outlined in the letter that we provided to you. But yep, so That's our proposal, sir.
Thank you. And so the university, in a sense, has requested that the two properties, the 1226 Springdale Road and the 503 College Avenue, that rezoning would be continued until a future time. And what we will do in the meantime, the city, along with the university and the public, will go through a public process where we will identify the overlay district for the university and the neighborhood area. That will, again, be very detailed, very involved with the university and our team too, our city council and administrative team. So that is where we are. So no action will be taken on item 1A or B1.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very well. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Chapman?
I just want to make just a brief comment that obviously I think this could potentially be a good solution, but I was just notified this by letter just a few minutes ago. So I know a lot of residents that have been calling myself as well as other council members. We were just made aware of this today. So we appreciate you being here and hope that you will be involved in the public comment of this format.
Thank you. We'll move on to the second item of new business, and that's request consideration of an ordinance to revise section 42-62 of the Anderson City Code as it relates to outside storage, accumulation, and nuisances. Before you go into your recap, what will happen, ma'am? I know I see a couple hands raised, and we will have opportunities within the coming months for you to, through the public process and meetings, to talk about your...
Is this before the voting to rezone? We don't know what's going on.
No, ma'am, there won't be a vote tonight.
There will not be a vote to
No.
rezone or do anything?
On items A1 and B1, the university has requested that rezoning be postponed.
Okay, because we don't know anything. All we're hearing is AU has talked and spoke to y'all, and we have not spoke to anyone. We do not know anything except what we have just heard.
And as Mr. Chapman basically stated, as Mr. Rashad stated too, the university has just requested that the rezonings for both of those properties be delayed.
Well, I'm the next door neighbor at 124. I really need to be heard.
And I assure you,
Years.
and I assure you that we will have meetings. I saw a hand over here too. But I assure you, I promise you, that you will have a place and a time to voice your concern.
Thank you, sir. Thank
The
you very much.
notification will...
Oh, yeah, and let's do this too. Maurice is here, and we through the planning commission, the rezone, we have a lot of your names and your contacts, and we want to make sure that we get all your names and contacts so we can keep you in the loop.
Thank you. We have pictures to prove that there are very bad situations that you have not seen, and Anderson University has not addressed.
Well, I understand your concern, and
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
What kind of time period are we talking about?
That's a good question. It takes a while. We've been told by our planning staff that it could be anywhere from 3 to 4 months for this to happen.
Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Hold on one second. Ms. Jack? No, Ms. Hart?
Yes,
The gentleman that just spoke, he was talking about wanting to see that the university's needs are met. There was nothing about the people's needs being met at all. So I think the university profit over people.
Well, I heard something, the letter I heard said that he wanted to cooperate with the neighbors.
Yeah,
Okay? And so, I'm gonna take him as his word here.
Mr. Mayor, a couple of the folks in the audience, I spent the afternoon or a little while after lunch over at their properties, so, obviously I wouldn't have come today if I knew that, or that we weren't, it wasn't action, or I certainly would have shared that with both of you. We appreciate, everybody coming out, and I can assure you, AU sounds to me like they're taking a step to at least sit down and discuss things, whether you want to discuss them or not. And, well, I think that's the process that's actually going, and, I appreciate y'all coming out, but like the mayor said, there's, we're not going to take any action on it until we can have an opportunity to sit down with the citizens and Anderson University and staff to come up with a resolution. And
Ms. McConnell?
Mr. Mayor, if I could suggest, we'd like to put a sign-up sheet out with our officer outside the door, and if anyone who's interested in particularly being contacted to know a little bit more or to ask questions of our planning staff, that might help communicate to the neighborhood what it is that happens next. I think the important part is at this stage, the staff doesn't know exactly what action steps, because we've not studied the overlay district. We know what an overlay district is, we know how it functions, but what the specific contents of this overlay district might look like, we're obviously, like everybody else in the room, we're not there yet. But we want this to be, in order for it to work, then the public process has to include people from the neighborhood, interested citizens, and we would expect, to answer that time frame question, this will take several months. It might take 3 months, it might take 4 months for us to get through, just depending on how much conversation about this needs to occur. So, we will certainly be involved in communicating this to the public and to you all as a council. But as a first step, we don't want to miss anybody in this process. We have a pretty good database of people who've expressed interest in this previously. But if we could leave a sign-up sheet right outside the door, then we might be able to get the start of that and maybe answer some additional questions outside of right this minute.
And we placed one out there, Mayor.
Yeah, and there's something out there to sign up. Last one, yes.
Will we, as residents, get a detail of exactly
You'll be
what
involved.
will be done with the property,
No.
the house, and the area around it?
You'll be involved in the process if you want to be involved. And that's part of it,
That's why I'm here.
We want to participate.
Well, and that's the
what
intent.
we're gonna do.
Today was just to vote yes or no, from our point of view, from council's point of view. The university has tabled it. They requested that it be postponed. Now, as Mr. McConnell said, the public process, and we'll be there. Our council will be there.
Absolutely.
And we'll be listening to the concerns. Believe me, we know about your concerns.
Will this be directed to you, the city, or will it go back to the zone?
It will eventually,
Go to both.
the
Eventually goes to both.
it goes to both of them. Yes. So there's a sign-up sheet out, and, another thing about it is that, we are a town that has a growing university, and that's doing a lot of good things for our community. We understand that. We also understand the pressures that a growing university puts on a city. We've talked about that. And so there's got to be a happy medium somewhere in the middle of this, and that's what we're working toward, a happy medium. And, and I can say it, and we've been very good about it, and the public discourse, I'm hoping will be in a very good tone, and I believe that we can get there. Okay?
And you might want to say that if they wish to stay, they can.
Oh yeah, you can leave or you can stay. We'd like for you to stay. But if you want to get up and leave after this item, that's fine. Yes, ma'am.
Just one more thing. The last time I know I signed up, gave my information. I heard nothing about this meeting. If it had not been for Marty, I would not be here. My suggestion is the sign-up sheet might work, but why not direct a letter to the residents, all the residents, and you'll have the street names.
Yeah, we don't have a problem with that.
We can do that.
Yeah. That's it.
Our first thing is we have to, with the public input process, identify what that area is. So this is a good first step with the sign-up sheet to make sure that we at least have a core group of people who were here tonight and that understand how we're trying to move forward. So we can promise you, you sign up tonight, we'll make sure that's the start of a base of people
Because
that,
it didn't work the last time.
well, it will work this time.
For people that were not able to come, but would like to know what's going on, who do they call?
They can call our main line, which is 231-2200, or they can call the planning office, which is 231-2222.
What about
Storage, accumulation, and nuisances. Ms. McConnell?
Mr. Mayor, we have been working for some time with the planning staff and the city council and we do, this is not something that it's not out of the ordinary for us to look at ways to refine or address changes in our existing laws and regulations that are on the books. This particular one that is before you, we have an existing section in our city code that relates to outside storage, accumulations, and nuisances. And oftentimes those nuisances, certainly this time of year, come in the form of weeds and the control of people's yards as it relates to the growing season of spring and summer. But the manner in which people upkeep their yards and personal property is what this has to do with. So the staff has proposed, and with the council's understanding, we have proposed certain changes that would update our regulations and provide a little more, a little extra tool in our toolbox for our inspectors who go out and inspect various properties on which we receive complaints. I'd like to call on Planning and Development Director Maurice McKenzie to tell you a little bit more about this revision.
Thank you. Mr. McKenzie?
As Ms. McConnell mentioned, we already have guidelines in place that are through our International Property Maintenance Code that the council adopted, and it mainly focuses on safety and health related items. Ms. McConnell mentioned weeds and tall grass. It handles things like abandoned vehicles, accumulation of garbage, again, safety issues, health issues, rodent type situations. But what we have found in much of with our code enforcement officers and issues that we get calls from residents, there's a different layer above and beyond the safety issue, and it's more of the aesthetics piece, and that's relating to outdoor storage of several items, whether it's an accumulation of junk or household goods outside, basically things that belong indoors, but they may be stored outdoors. So that's the language that we are proposing to you, and basically it would be added to our city code, section 42-62, which already exists. And if you can see in your packet, written in the red, item C in particular, in addition to adding the words junk piles, which are accumulation of rubbish and things of that nature, but having accumulation of personal property, including but not limited to household goods, boxes, machinery, parts or furniture that's not designed for outdoor use, those things would be prohibited, along with landscaping and building materials. If you don't have an active building site going on, just those type of accumulations in front yards only. We're talking about front yards. So that's what we are proposing to add. Again, we already have a good basis for what we currently enforce. This will just help from more of an aesthetic standpoint and, again, just from an overall collection of items in yards.
I don't have a whole, I've got maybe a couple questions, I guess. One would be, how long have we been in this process to look at these revisions? How long have you and your team been looking at this?
It's been since late winter. Well, it's actually been, most of this calendar year, actually. We've been doing a lot of research and windshield studies just to see how certain guidelines would work. And again, when we adopt guidelines, we want to make sure we can enforce them. We don't want to create something that would not be effective. So we found that this layer of language is something that our staff, which consists of 2 code enforcement officers, can enforce. It's something that we commonly get phone calls about that's above and beyond what we have in our guidelines.
Good, you answered my second question too. I'll open it up for questions. Mr. Locke?
You said front yards, but you also have in there secondary front yards.
Yes, sir. Thank you for bringing that up. Corner lots, that's what that really means.
Like my house.
Like your house. Your front yard is, if you're on a corner lot, we consider it to be
I'm on a
2 front
corner lot.
yards. So that way you can see, basically 2 street
So I
frontages.
have to really watch what I do.
Yeah,
right?
we'll keep an eye on that. But your primary front yard is really your front of your house, and then your secondary front yard is that front yard which the side is. If you have a fenced-in yard, then this would not apply, as long as your stuff is behind that fence line.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Dr. Thomas?
I've been thinking about this. To have a beautiful city, downtown and in our community. There's a big sign out front on Main Street that says, Anderson is my town. And I'd like the community here just to raise your hand if you think Anderson is your town. Anyone? Yeah, everybody. So, to have a good town and one that you're proud of, we need to have a clean town. We need to have something that we can all be proud to say, Anderson is my town. Not just downtown Anderson, that's our town too, but where you live. And so, when this first came up, of course we had the ordinance for a long time about the tall grass and the debris. And people sometimes follow the rule and sometimes they don't. So if you live next door to someone who doesn't follow the rule, then you're not doing what we should do, along with the ordinance, is to have an education for our community to say, how many of you would be willing to make sure your community, your street is clean? How many of you would be willing to say, my desire is to make Anderson the cleanest, the most beautiful city in South Carolina, well, in the nation for that matter. But anyway, I think that education is part of what this ordinance ought to do. They can't educate everybody, but at least you can say, here's why we need the ordinance. We need it because we need to clean up our town. We need to clean up our city. We need to, even though we've had the ordinance, and I think Maurice's additions maybe clarify what do you mean by breaking the law, or what goes in your front yard, or whatever. But I think if all of us understood that this is not a punitive ordinance, I see it as an encouraging ordinance. That all of us can say that, yeah, I like to live in a city where people are concerned about the looks. They take pride in where they live. So I'm going to vote for this ordinance, hoping that our community, not just the ones who are sitting here, but all of our community, no matter where you live, you can have a nice front yard, a clean front yard.
Is that a motion, Dr. Thomas?
He's telling me I'm talking.
No, I have not. I would never do that.
But, this is an ordinance, Mayor.
A motion?
This is a motion
Okay.
that we accept this on the first reading.
We can still have discussion, but let's get it on the floor.
Okay.
I have a first.
That's mine.
Second by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion, comments?
I'd like to add on to that, Mr. Mayor, if I may. This is, I want the citizens to be reminded that this is not a you said
Punitive,
punitive. That's
yeah.
right. We're not, the vast majority of citizens will not be any way affected by this. This helps put a little more, give us a little more teeth to try to enforce those that are, and those that are eyesores and problems to our community. So just really want to reinforce that there.
And I too, Mayor, agree with that. And I think what we're doing is specifying a little bit more directly what a violation might be. So it's one of those things that's good for the community. I think it's a good thing.
Good. Anything else, guys?
Appreciate their planning department.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
So we have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. McKenzie. Passes unanimously on first reading. Our next item of new business is request consideration of purchase of SQL server software. Ms. McConnell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you all see, oftentimes from us, as technology changes, so do our needs in terms of staying current and being able to utilize our database of information, being able to conduct our business in our various departments, and that's what this particular item is about. So I'd like to ask our IT Director, Mark Cunningham, to tell you a little bit more about this server software and our needs.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Our current SQL Server is about 8 years old. In the world of technology, that's about as old as you can get. You've got to keep everything updated as things change, the requirements change, so we got to keep moving forward. We're running SQL Server 2008 software right now. The current version is 2018. We've got several applications that we're wanting to upgrade our software for, and it requires the new version to move forward. Right now, our SQL servers are one of our only physical servers. We run almost a completely virtual environment. It's one that does have to be replaced as it ages. We have added a lot of features to our database system recently. Whenever we went with Cartograph for water, stormwater, that put a huge database on there. Our ESRI software, which is our mapping software, is one of the newer upgrades that we need to move forward with. We've experienced a lot of slowness and crashing on the existing server because of these applications. Our upgraded CSI software with Smart Fusion, that's our accounting finance software, it's put some extra strain on the device. Jail software, and that put an additional strain on it as well. So we're just asking that we're allowed to upgrade this software, and it's going to be going on a new server. The funding is from general fund 64% and water fund 36%. That's based on the software applications that use the server.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. I don't have any questions.
I do.
Mr. Lockridge?
Will the present hardware be able to handle the software?
No, we're purchasing a new software, a new server.
New server, complete new server?
Yeah, but its cost was below the threshold to come to council with.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments?
Thank you. Motion is we accept it for general approval as presented.
Second.
I have a first and a second. I guess I could be cynical and say that there's a lifespan, and that's how companies make royalties and get you to buy new products.
That's true. That is true.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Our next item is request consideration to purchase a phone system. See that since you're still standing.
I think it has to do with you, doesn't it?
Ms. McConnell?
That'd be correct. Again, this has to do with technology, and it does have to do with the fact that the phone system that we have in place in our buildings, certainly principally, I can tell you about the one here in City Hall, has been in place since we moved in this building in 2002. Mark can tell you a little bit more about how this system functions and what we'd like to do as far as technology and advancing our efforts.
Thank you. As Mr. McConnell said, we put in our existing phone system in 2002. We've had a couple upgrades through the years, but the phone handsets are basically unchanged, basically using the same ones. When we put it in, it's a hybrid system, so anything that's located in this building or in the police department or the fire department is a copper-based system, so it's like the old phone lines where they're running, they're punched down, and then it's connected into the system. Every place else is an IP-based system, so it runs over our computer network. That's all of the rest of the buildings. Right now we have an on-premise system, so the telephone system, a lot of people call them PBXs. It's hardware-based, so the hardware is located here. So we were notified at the end of last year that this system was reaching end of life this July 1st. So at that point, we got a proposal from our existing vendor, which is NEC, to replace it. And I just felt it was an appropriate time to look at what else was out there to see if there was any other better options. I was at the South Carolina IT Directors Association meeting this spring, and many of the state agencies, the larger state agencies, are going to hosted solutions. I've been contacted by a couple of vendors that provided hosted solutions. And after receiving proposals and we met with the representatives, we saw demos of the product. There's a lot of benefits to a hosted solution compared to an on-premise hardware-based solution. The main one is we'll be able to manage the system ourselves. Right now, with the PBX, if someone moved from one office to another, we'd have to have a tech come out and make the move for us. A lot of the issues required service visits, and we spent over $7,500 last year on maintenance and support, on paying people to come out and repair our system. So this is a completely IP-based system. It's cloud-based. As long as we have an internet connection, you can connect as many phones as you want to. So we've got smaller offices like our cemetery that may only have one phone. They've had to have their own phone line. Now, as long as they've got an internet connection, they can connect to our system and it'll all be tied together. So some of the things we've done, right now we've got a 100 meg internet circuit, and we're going to increase that to 250 meg. The lines that we have providing our phone system will be able to eliminate. We've had pinpoint 911 service we'll be able to eliminate, which basically the proposal that we're recommending is from AT&T. We've been an AT&T customer forever. They provide all of our circuits, they provide all of our cellular, they provide all of our communication with our security cameras. So it's going to be a lot cleaner just to have one provider for that. And also, moving forward, it is on state contract. So there's only a couple providers that are on state contract, and they're all hosted. So it's definitely the wave of the future. That's the way everyone seems to be going now. The cost is almost the same as far as a hosted solution compared to an in-house. The only difference is the in-house you'd have to pay more up front. The in-house, the hosted is less up front, but you're paying it over a period of time. So that's our recommendations. I tried not to get overly technical, but it is a big, big project for us, and we spent a lot of time evaluating. So we think we've got the right one chosen.
I appreciate that. We'll open it up for questions. Ms. Chapman?
On what we have now as far as the premise service.
Yes.
We own that equipment, but on the new service, we're doing a hardware lease. Is there a buyout for that? Or
It's a no dollar buyout. When the only thing we're leasing is the actual handsets.
Okay, but is there a buyout? So at the end of that lease, we own it?
We own it at the end of the lease.
Okay, excellent. That's my only question.
Dr. Thompson?
Yes.
Is this already funded in your budget?
It is.
Yes.
Yes, I think you've been looking at this for a while, so you had to understand what the cost would be, Mr. Lockridge.
Will this do away with all the hardware? I mean, hard wiring
Will it do away with it?
with the hard wiring?
Yes. Everything will be 100% IP based. We'll be running it all through our network.
How long will it take to take out the whole old system and put in the whole new system?
We're looking at about a 6-week implementation.
Okay. So you can do that without too much?
It literally, when we will have the new system up in place, everybody will have 2 phones on their desk.
Okay.
At one day we'll do a cut and the new phone will start working and the old phone won't.
Okay. Well, let me ask this last question. I think I've heard you say this, but I just want to make sure. If somebody from the city calls me at my house,
Right.
it will give me the phone number of the person that's calling me, not just the general number at the front.
We can control that. So
Okay.
however we choose to program that.
Okay.
Before, with our existing system, we were limited on the number of outgoing numbers we could provide, so we had to choose. So let's say somebody from the planning department made a call, we generally sent out the main number for the planning department. If it was somebody from the police department, we sent out the main number from the PD. Just because we had a very low number of telephone numbers we could send out on outgoing caller ID.
Well, I know there's times when somebody's called, it's gone back to the original number.
Oh yeah, we hear that a lot, and I know that the front desk folks will be very happy whenever we
That
make
sounds
this
wonderful.
change.
Good. Anything else, guys?
Make a motion we accept it as presented as well.
No. First by Mr. Chapman,
Second.
second by Dr. Thompson. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. Our 5th item of new business is request consideration of hospitality funding for recreation items. Ms. McCollum?
Mr. Bevel.
From time to time, Mr. Mayor and Council, we bring requests to you for expenditures of hospitality funds for certain recreation items. Tonight is one of those nights where we have 2 requests that we're asking for specific funding for, and Bobby Bevel is with us tonight to share with you a little bit more information about these 2 items.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. We have 2 requests. The first one is a vehicle request for our Parks Maintenance Department. We are in the process of interviewing for a park maintenance supervisor, and that truck would be for that person that we're getting ready to bring on board. A Chevrolet Silverado half-ton V8 crew cab with a spray-in bed liner. It is a state contract, price of $26,893 with Love Chevrolet out of Columbia. Any questions?
Seems pretty clear cut. Might have a little on the floor cover. Go right ahead.
Okay. The floor covering is the tarp that we put out over the wood floor when we have events where people have hard sole shoes. We use it at wedding receptions when we have food. We had it out for the Christmas dinner that we use. The one we currently have, we bought when the building opened in 2006. It's in need of being replaced. When we purchased the one in 2006, it was a little, it covered basically the basketball floor. So the perimeter was still left, and if we had serving lines, we had to put down another type of tarp for the tables. This tarp is larger, it goes wall to wall for us, so we won't have but one floor covering. We got three prices, three vendors. The low price is from Great Mats out of Milltown, Michigan for $9,668. That's a 27-ounce slip resistance, fire retardant, 15-year warranty. It's 101 feet by 76 with a rack and power winder. The tarp goes on like a rack and a spool. You have a winder that goes on the side, and it's battery operated that winds it. You do have to guide it with it, but it makes it a lot easier to put up and take out kind of thing. So we'll put the old floor covering on Gov Deals and see if we can get some money for that. We're asking, recommending of approval of $36,561 from the Hospitality Fund to purchase the 2019 Chevrolet Silverado from Love Chevrolet and for $26,893, and the floor covering from Great Mats for $9,668.
Thank you, sir. Comments on either one of those requests? Mr. Harbin, then Ms. Lockridge.
First off, Mr. Bell, it's certainly good to see you at a council meeting.
Amen. It's good to be back.
Glad to see you here. The Silverado, I know in the past, what color, hadn't you tried to stay with the same color scheme of vehicles? I know
Our trucks are white.
Okay. Is that still going to be the?
Yes.
Okay.
Will this be similar, the map, will it be similar to what we have now?
It'd be almost exactly except larger.
Will it have, it says it doesn't move. Does ours now have a
Second. First by Mr. Harbin, second by Mr. Lockridge. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Mr. Belvin.
Thank you.
Our sixth item seems like we're moving around the division here. The sixth item is request consideration of Arnett Muldrow and Associates for the Downtown Development Master Plan, better known, I think, as the Shot the Spot Grant Project. Ms. McCollum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're glad to be bringing this to you this evening. We're certainly proud that we received the grant award from the Municipal Association for this Shot This Block project, and we're anxious to move it forward, and I'll call on Economic Development Director Kimberly Spears to share the details of what we're asking for your authorization for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. We request consideration of Arnett Muldrow and Associates for the Downtown Development Master Plan Shop This Block Grant Project. The Economic Development staff issued a request for qualifications from urban design and planning firms to be received by March 15th, 2018. 4 firms responded: Design Workshop, Land Plan Group South, Sizemore Group, and Arnett Muldrow and Associates. Arnett Muldrow and Associates from Greenville and Design Workshop from Asheville were interviewed on April the 30th, 2018. The Economic Development staff and selection committee recommends that Arnett Muldrow and Associates be selected for the Downtown Development Master Plan. This is part of the Municipal Association grant that was awarded, and council approved the match on September the 25th.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? I think Mr. Chapman participated in the both meetings and also the interview process. Mr. Chapman?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I was impressed by both of them. I think the selection that y'all have made will be positive, and I'm excited to see what they come up with, because I love the shock the block term that y'all came up with, and I think that's a good opportunity to see where they take us.
Thank you. We're excited about it as well.
Mr. Mayor, if we can add one more thing.
Yes.
We're asking for you tonight to authorize us to move forward with Arnett Muldrow and Associates. There is no price tag tonight, and there is no defined scope of work other than what we asked for when we did the RFQs. So that you will see this project again once we talk with Arnett Muldrow about a defined scope of work and the price tag contract. We'll bring that back to you for your approval.
Good.
Can I ask, the matching grant from the city was how much?
We're 25,000.
25.
25,000, yes, ma'am.
The match was 10%, so you authorized us to at least accept the grant and provide that match. So that gets us started.
Good. Any other comments, questions?
I'll make a motion to approve this, Mayor.
First by Mr. Harbin, second by the Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. I would like to say that of the 3 years, I think the municipal association has given these grants out throughout the state. Our county has collected all 3 years with Williamson, West Pelzer, and this past cycle, City Ransom. So it tells you we're doing some good things here in the county.
Yes, sir.
And our fellow sister cities in the county. Our seventh item of new business requests consideration of a contract extension for the pump station replacement project. Ms. McCollum.
This project sort of fits with Kimberly talking about economic development. This project certainly has a role in our economic development. Jeff Caldwell is at the podium and will tell us a little bit more, but just as a way of reminding you, the construction of these two pump stations, Mall Road and Wedgewood Drive, certainly those two projects are important for our continued economic development, for our growth and development for this community. The construction of those two replacement stations is a $4.6 million construction project. Very important, and Jeff will tell you this particular change, which is just a contract extension, but he'll share those details with you.
Thank you, Linda. It's like a lot of our sewer projects, this finds its home in our CMOM programs. This is where it all started. One of the initiatives was to develop a program for our pump stations operation and maintenance. And through that, we were able to do some short-term assessments on our sewer pump stations. All 6 of those. 4 of those we were able to say that they were in good working order. 2 of those were not. We did some minor improvements to them at that time, but we ended up, our corrective action plan was to replace those. So in September 2015, you gave approval to start the design process and bid those projects out. As part of those services, the engineer was to provide some a project representative on site to be our eyes and ears on the project. So they're out there watching the construction, making sure it's built to our standards, making sure we're getting what we're paying for. We have the appropriate documentation going forward, so when we are operating and maintaining the system in the future, we have the correct documentation and the means to do so, and kind of cuts down on cost in the future there too. One of the other things it provides a lot of documentation to our loan process through our state revolving fund loan. This person is out there it's out there 40 hours a week on average. So they're out there all the time. Anytime construction is going on, they're there. They're providing reports to us weekly of that construction. And so under the original approval that you gave in September 2015, we were anticipating a 10-month construction process. Through the design process and talking to our two contractors, we felt like a 14-month construction process was was better for the project, would probably get us lower bids because the contractor wouldn't have to combine a lot of resources to get it done in a shorter period of time. We did get a great bid on that. That could have been part of it maybe. After that, when we got into construction, we did have some site access issues where we were getting access to our pump station sites and things like that, and other change orders through time that have added time to the project. So we're at about a little over 15 months is where our construction process would be at now. So what we're asking for is to extend that from 10 months to 16 months to provide for that resident.
I think all are familiar with what pump stations do on the council, and how important they are. My first thought was maybe you might want to explain what a pump station actually does to our audience.
Okay. Normally in our service area, the way it's the topography of our service area, everything kind of flows downstream to our treatment plants, and so it's all gravity fed until you get out Clemson Boulevard and start going toward the lake. And once you get out toward the lake, it starts dropping the other way, so we have to pump that wastewater back up over the hill into the gravity system to be treated.
Good, thanks. Any other questions, comments for Jeff?
I'd like to make a motion that we request consideration of a contract extension for the pump station replacement project.
First by Mr. Lockridge.
Second.
Second by Dr. Thompson. Further comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Our last item of new business is request consideration of a construction contract for the Club Drive water line replacement project. Ms. McCollum.
Again, we won't let Jeff sit down yet because, again, as part of his master plan for our water system, we've identified areas, as you all know, and have made improvements in other areas of the city so we can address water quality as well as water pressure issues. This is one of those particular projects, so Jeff, can you share?
Yes, ma'am. This is what's next on our list of our master plan, and it's several areas combined into this. We call it the Club Drive areas that kind of down at the lower Finley Park area, but there's a segment of line that goes from Malden up to Pine Hill Court. There's Glenwood Avenue is included in this, Stark Street, and some others that are out around the city. And then there's about 10 fire hydrants that are strategically placed that we needed some help changing out. So in high traffic areas where we wouldn't necessarily have the traffic control devices every day on hand, we would have to do that project. So the project consists of about a mile of pipe. It affects 78 residential services, and we're replacing 10 fire hydrants. We did receive 2 bids. One of those was under our original construction budget, J&M Construction, for $476,687. We were surprised we only got 2 bids, but after discussing it with the contractors, there are a lot of projects in the area that are of interest to them, some larger projects. I think West Anderson has a very large project going on. So there's a lot of other interest in other areas and a lot of the economic development projects that are going on now needing utilities also. So we were fortunate to get these 2 and very fortunate to get J&M, I believe. As Ms. McConnell stated, these will eliminate some water quality issues we are seeing in that area, and that require us to flush on a weekly basis and hopefully raise the water pressures in those areas. These are funded by our Water Operations Special Projects Capital Budget, and we are recommending that you approve a construction contract with J&M Construction for the $476,687.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President.
Ms. Chapman.
I have a couple of questions, I guess. Who designed the proposal that went out?
The plans were designed by Holtzy, McCormick, and Wallace. They were one of our utility engineers.
And have they reviewed the bids?
Yes.
Okay, and they don't have any problem that there's a 40% discrepancy in the 2 high and the low?
Based on those factors we heard, they actually said both bids were responsive. They were not out of whack in any way. They were just, one was really wanting to get this job, and
may have had other work.
Had other work, and it was just going to make it worth their while maybe. I will say J&M did the water improvements in our Old North Anderson area, and they
They
also
did a good
did
job.
the improvements on our West Franklin area.
Okay, excellent. We don't typically see that big of a swing between two bids, so thank you for your work.
We'd like to see about 3 more in between those two.
Yes, yeah, we would.
But I
Thank you.
guess your other point about things like Arthur X and TTI, there's a lot of activity going on in the community. Anything else, guys?
I'd like to also make a recommendation that we adopt this water line replacement project for Club Drive area. It's my area, and I'm glad to see those folks more happy with their water. It will also increase the pressure, am I correct in that?
It should.
Not just the water quality, but the pressure as well. Yes, I would like to make a motion for that.
With J&M.
With J&M, I'm sorry, J&M Construction, Anderson.
Okay, have a first by Ms. Lockridge. Second by Dr. Thompson. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Hopefully we won't see you in a while, Jeffrey. Okay, it's been the council's tradition sometimes that we see people who stay, so I know I can identify the truth. And does somebody want to get up and represent or tell what's going on here today?
Thank you, Mayor and Councilman. My name is Chris Meredith. I'm sure you don't know me. I do know your brother, Principal of Westside.
Yes, yes, I do. Don't hold that against me.
I had to call him out on that. But as you know, in our troop 215, it's pretty obvious how we do things. We usually try to help out the city of Anderson and try to help ourselves out.
Thank you, Chris. My name is Bill Masick. I'm one of the assistant scoutmasters with Troop 215. And what we're doing is, Boy Scouts is very interested in helping out the community, the nation, the world. What we are actually here tonight doing is observing how our city government works. And I must say, I've been to probably 5 or 6 of these meetings where very little happened. This was actually pretty exciting. It was very intense to start out. I was worried about a short amount.
Well, I appreciate.
But that's what we're here for, is to observe.
Well, good. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate
Mr. Mayor,
you.
and thank you, Councilman.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
And then, Mr. Chapman, I see some of the chamber folks here, so that's leadership duty. You guys always have to stay to the end. Somebody want to get up and talk about be chosen a project or anything? Anybody representative? This is your chance. It's the quietest leadership class I've ever had.
They've got so many leaders, they don't know who to choose.
Good afternoon. My name is Nick Walker, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us here tonight in the Leadership Anderson class of 34. And the project that our class has been working on is kind of helping to rehab the Anderson Free Clinic.
Right.
I don't know if you've been in, but we're doing a little bit of facelift to the facility there, mostly with paint is what we've been doing so far. And trying to help raise some money to assist in that process of giving a facelift to the facility there. So.
Well, great. We appreciate what you guys do. Thank you. Thanks to the chamber. We'll round it out with administrative briefing. Ms. McCollum.
A few things that left on the calendar for this month. Tomorrow at 4 p.m. at the Westside Community Center will be the Westside Community Coalition meeting. On Thursday, the Southeast Anderson Task Force meets at 5:30 at the Career Campus. Concerned citizens of the east side, they've had a change in their meeting location for the summer. It will be at Toxaway United Methodist Church at 5 p.m. And then, as you mentioned earlier, Mr. Mayor, on the Monday, May the 28th, our offices will be closed in observance of Memorial Day. That rounds our calendar out and all that we have for this evening.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody's hard work. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn. First by Mr. Buck Roberts, second by Mr. Newton. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned.
Well, that's good.
Projection.